And you bring up the LSU game. I don't take a whole lot of stock, and I think Jaden Daniels is a good quarterback. He's not great. He's a good quarterback. And that wide receiver core is a top 5 unit in the nation. So I think some of those plays, they were legit. And at one point, that was what? That was a 35-17 game. And I think LSU was like down inside the 10 to make it a 11-point game. Like that was about the closest it got. And then
Yep.
Georgia turned them over and it was done. So that 500 yards passing doesn't mean a whole lot to you.
Well, I'm not happy about it. And look, this isn't a situation where Georgia, you hear a lot of, oh, well, they took the starters out, or they were playing prevent defense, or oh, they weren't doing this. Georgia was, all the starters were in. They were playing man coverage, a little bit of zone, but mostly man like they normally do. What they weren't doing is putting Nussmeier under pressure. I mean, the guy had sitting back there for 6 seconds. Georgia can't really get to the QB with 3 or 4 guys. Another difference from last year. I mean, Jalen Carter is a problem for anybody, no doubt, in the middle, but they don't have the pass rushers on the outside really that they've had in the past. But Nussmeier was sitting back there for 5, 6 seconds and picking that secondary apart. I mean, that wasn't a good second half by Georgia's secondary. And again, it wasn't a thing where, well, we had a huge lead, so we took the starters out. No, that was Keely Ringo and Kamari Lassiter and Christopher Smith and Malachi Starks back there, the 4 starters, and Javon Bullard, the nickel corner. That's who that was. And they got ate up. Now, did Georgia play exactly the same defensively in the second half as they did the first half? No. And what is it with Georgia and backup QB? Who is Ohio State's backup quarterback? Because if Ohio State wants to win, that's probably what they need to do. Put the backup in it after halftime. What is going on with Georgia? Can't win these games when these teams switch quarterbacks, can they? I mean, we beat LSU, but it was only because we had a 28-point lead before they switched QBs.
That is the history. Yeah.
It's weird. Yeah, it's weird. And Nussmeier and Jaden Daniels are 2 totally different style of QBs. But really, to me, that's not an excuse because we didn't really know if Jaden Daniels was going to play. So you should have been preparing for both Nussmeier and Jaden Daniels. We know Nussmeier is a pocket passer, more of a pocket passer, and Jaden Daniels is more of a runaround guy. So 2 totally different styles. But Jaden Daniels had that ankle injury coming into the game. So you should have at least considered the possibility, hey, they might put Nussmeier in. If they do, what changes are we going to make defensively for him as opposed to Daniels? And it looked like it didn't work. I wasn't happy with it at all. I think they just played bad in the second half. I don't know why. As much as I think they played bad, I don't look forward and apply that to Ohio State in any way. Like nothing I saw in the second half against LSU makes me more worried about Ohio State. Every time Georgia has had to be locked in this season, they've been almost or looked almost unbeatable every time. I don't think because LSU threw for 250 yards or whatever it was in the second half of that game when it was over at halftime, that now means something for the Ohio State game. I just don't like that we played that bad in the second half.
So you're not like some of the people that comment to my show that want to find a chink in Georgia's armor and they're still bringing up the Kent State game.
Yeah, right. I mean, oh my God, Georgia only beat Kent State by 17. Okay. And I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. The Kent State and Missouri games are
that's ridiculous.
Now
the Missouri game, that makes more sense to me than Kent State.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's no excuse for that performance against Missouri. Kent State, it's at home. It's an early game. The students are still asleep, that kind of thing. I watched that game. And at not one point during the Kent State game did I think Georgia was going to lose. I thought Georgia was going to lose the Missouri game all the way up until, the 5 minutes into the fourth quarter. I actually thought Georgia was going to lose that game. And I think Georgia deserved to lose that game. I think it's just talent just won out in the end, but man, that was bad. There's no excuses for that. And the whole, and I don't like this about Kirby Smart. Everybody knows it's harder to play on the road than it is at home. But every time we lay an egg on the road, whether it's a 4-point win over Mizzou or a loss, Kirby goes on this whole thing like he just had to take his team into the Death Star to play a game. This is Missouri. No, nothing against Missouri. but it's Missouri. So if you were going to rank home field advantages in the SEC, they're a double digit home, somewhere 11 to 14. I mean, this isn't playing at LSU at night. You know, this isn't playing at Auburn. This isn't playing at Sanford Stadium. This isn't even playing at the other Columbia at South Carolina. It's Missouri. Other than Vandy, it's probably the least home field advantage in the entire SEC. And Kirby overblows that kind of thing. Georgia just played bad. That's it. They played horrible in that game. Now, that was in September. It might be time. If you're an Ohio State fan and you're banking on something that happened in September as proof that you're going to win this game, you know, try looking at the last 6 games.
That game was completely off my radar. You know, I'm kind of like you, I'm guessing, where other than your team, you're going to watch the Georgia game. You're watching the best games and you got a lineup and priorities of who you want to see. And that was completely off my radar. We got close to the fourth quarter. I'm like, I got to watch this game. I got to see the fourth quarter. And
I couldn't believe it. I was live streaming the game and I said multiple times at halftime and into the third quarter, Georgia's going to lose. They're going to lose. They're not going to come back from this. They're going to lose. And they almost did. I mean, they didn't lead at all in that game till 4 minutes to go in the game or something. They deserve to lose that game. But, you know, if you go back and you look at almost every single national title winner over the last 20 years, they have one of those games somewhere.
Sure.
So, you know, I try using the Missouri game to pigeonhole Georgia is just as dumb as using the Oregon game. I think
the Oregon game's more valid.
Well, yeah, but like that's the best version you will get of Georgia. And so saying, well, we beat Oregon 49-3, so we probably beat the Buffalo Bills too. It's just as dumb as saying, well, you only beat Missouri 26-22, so probably going to lose to Ohio State by 50. Both of those things are ridiculous. Look at the body of work.
Yep.
Don't pick out the best performance or the worst performance. Look for patterns. The patterns are 40 points a game scoring and 11 points a game giving up. That's the pattern.
Yeah, I have that argument with people all the time when they try to use the transitive property, which doesn't work. But when I bring up about 8 transitive properties, then that's a resume. That you understand if there's dozens of transitive properties that we're talking about, and they're not 7 degrees away, they're 1 degree away. That's called a resume. And that's what that is.